Welcome to NDTR Spotlight, a show where we highlight former and current NDTRs. And NDTR, if you don't know, stands for Nutritionist Diet Technician Registered. They also go by the credential DTR, which stands for Diet Technician Registered. In order to become an NDTR, you have to graduate from an accredited program, take an exam, and participate in continual education. Welcome to NDTR Spotlight. I'm your host, Marie Lorraine. Today's guest, I have the privilege of knowing through a connection from Messiah University. She became an NDTR September 22nd, 2018, and landed a job in long-term care where she has experience in food service and clinical nutrition. Her area of expertise is in counseling, and she gained those experiences through her undergrad degree at Messiah University. Her biggest accomplishment to date is starting a dietetic internship and master's degree program during the COVID pandemic. She was able to move across the country for her internship. This is an interview to watch if you have any interest in taking a gap year and want to utilize it to the best of your ability, or you're a current NDTR and you are thinking about doing the dietitian credential to broaden your scope of practice. Kelly will bring an amazing look at what it's like to apply for a dietetic internship while working full-time as an NDTR, finding those connections, getting recommendations, reaching out to professors, and moving across the country to start a program during COVID. Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having the spotlight.
Yeah.
I'm to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started. Why did you become a diet technician?
Okay, so I applied for the internship my senior year of college, and I did not get matched. So after kind of letting my emotions, settle and become comfortable with not getting accepted, I was like, okay, I got to find something to do. So I decided to become a dietetic technician. I could earn some money, and I would get a lot more experience. So that's kind of the why behind why I'm here.
Wow, I love that you took that opportunity or that situation of not getting matched and turned it into something that is truly benefiting you today. So with that, how did you start studying for the NDTR exam, and how did you cope with not getting accepted into the dietetic internship right away?
Okay, so it was really hard because I found out with one of my friends from my college experience. And then we called everybody in our class saying, hey, did you get in? Where did you get in? Kind of thing like that. So it was kind of like I kept repeating that I didn't get in. And it didn't fully hit me until I got back to my apartment with my roommates and I told them I didn't get in. And I just broke down because I was so crushed. I had put so much work into, my education, and I, studied really hard. I wanted it, and it was kind of just, not making it across the finish line, which really isn't true because, I still crossed the finish line. I got my undergraduate degree, which, still allowed me to have all of this extra experience. So after kind of getting over, not getting an internship, I was like, okay, how can I make the best out of this? So I started looking up, how to study for the DTR exam, and I reached out to you because I know that you did it. So I used visual veggies, and that was really helpful, especially for practice exams to kind of get over test anxiety. But then also helped me realize all of the information that I needed to know for the exam, which was a lot of M&T stuff, food service, a lot in food service that we didn't cover in undergrad, which was really shocking to me. But then also different management styles and how to handle, if there's any issues in the kitchen or any issues that you have, between you and a nurse or different dietitians that you're working with. So I did that. I got the Academy's DTR study guide from a friend, and that really helped with, more practice exams. Finally, kind of realizing, here's another look at all of the information you need to know, because they give you a really very detailed outline of all of the stuff that you should know for the exam. And then when I exhausted those two resources, I just kept the groove reading and rewriting my notes from undergrad with all of those topics. So, yeah.
Wow, it sounds like you used every resource out there. How long did you study for this exam?
So I was working 3 jobs after graduation up until like the beginning of August. And I wasn't able to sign up for the exam until my undergrad professor, I guess, had papers to get in, saying that I graduated and, that I earned a degree in nutrition and dietetics, and she sent that into the academy. And then after that, I could sign up for an exam. So I booked it for September. So that was kind of like a month and a half of studying. But I did do a little like review over the summer while I was working too. So.
Wow, so that's a pretty fast turnaround. So you graduated in May and then you took your exam in September. Yeah. While working 3 jobs. You are.
Yeah. Luckily, they all kind of like tapered off at different points, so I was able to have a little bit of a break. But yeah, I don't know. At that point, I was like, I got to do what I got to do. So
I get that. So we're in September now, and you have your credential. How was the job search for finding a job as a diet technician?
So I only spent a month job searching before I got a call from the company that I worked for a year and a half, Nutritious Lifestyles. But the search itself was actually kind of rough. I used Glassdoor, Indeed, Monster, kind of like all your basic job searching websites. And when I typed in dietetic technician, a lot of it came up as a diet tech, which in the everyday world translates to the people who are delivering trays in a hospital, which I had already done in undergrad. And it's like, no, I'm a little overqualified for that job now. Mm-hmm. So really kind of like sifting through all of those was hard. And then if I did find a dietetic technician job that was real, and I applied to it, some of them didn't get back to me. Some of them got back to me and said, oh, we didn't realize that was still posted. We filled that a month ago. So yeah. But then finally I found my job with Nutritious Lifestyles. And even when I applied to that one, the 2 that I applied to, there was 2 different locations. They said, oh, both of those are filled, but we have 2 different locations, one in Texas and one in North Carolina. So yeah, and then after that, they had a really quick, job interview turnaround. It was like 24 hours. I had to decide where I wanted to go. And I had another job interview lined up for like Friday. So I was like, can I at least have this other interview? And they were like, no, we need to know in 24 hours. So I really had to make like quick, snappy decisions. But it worked out, I think, to my benefit.
So you chose the job in North Carolina, right? As opposed to the one in Texas?
Yes. Yeah.
Was there
I had kind of like an option to pick between Texas and North Carolina, but they also were like, we might put you somewhere where we think you would be best suited. So I had already had in my mind that North Carolina would be better because, if I needed to go home to my parents who live in Pennsylvania, it would be like a 6.5, 7-hour drive, or if I was in Texas, I would have to fly. So it was kind of great that I landed on North Carolina and so did they.
So how is your career as a NDTR? And currently you're still an NDTR. So how's your career been with the credential?
Yeah. So when I started out, it was so slow. I was working with a dietitian, kind of one-on-one, and they really had to guide me through how they wanted their notes to look because it was very different than how I had learned in college. So kind of like learning that, how to, talk to the residents in the long-term care units, how to ask them, specific questions for the things that we needed to know. I sat in on focus meetings once a week, which those included weight loss, and wound recommendations that we had. Our company also like specified in the kitchen as well, so I had a lot of time learning, what to look for in a kitchen to help them become ready for annual state survey, and just kind of like learning all of the people that I would have to talk to and where to find all of the information. We used an online medical chart called PCC, or Point Click Care. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but after learning that, I think I was with a dietitian, for about 3 months into the job before they said, you can be on your own. We trust what you're writing in your notes. You're doing a great job. I was limited to only doing brand new admissions, annual notes, quarterly notes on residents, as well as weight loss notes and wound notes. Whereas the dietitian did all of those plus calling dialysis centers and doing notes on them, and also tube feeds. And with the company I worked with, we would chart on them monthly. So once I got more experience with that, then they let me work on calling dialysis and then tube feed notes. So I got lots of experience with them, lots of experience in food service, not necessarily doing any of the cooking or serving, but how a kitchen should look, how it should be cleaned, appropriate temperatures for things. Lots of great work experience.
Yeah, it sounds like an internship in and of itself, and that food service, that's what a dietitian would do. It's more of the managerial position in food service. And it sounds like the fact that you got to do tube feeding notes and calling dialysis, wow,
yeah,
that's so awesome.
Yeah, and definitely getting the experience, I think, working with other medical professionals, not just dietitians and not just our food service workers, but, talking with CNAs, talking with nurses, talking with directors of nursing, and administrators of buildings, talking to those really important people and kind of like gaining the confidence in myself that I am an expert in this field and I have something valuable information-wise to offer to you, and I am important in all of our residents' lives, and how their livelihood is here.
Wow. So that is really the confidence you gained and the experience you gained. How do you feel like this credential, now that you're in the dietetic internship and you're doing the master's program right now, how do you feel like this experience and the credential is going to help you or put you ahead in the program that you're in now?
Oh my gosh, I feel like it's so beneficial that I did it. I have talked to a lot of the other interns at the program that I'm at, and telling them not only about my experience in undergrad, but also what I have been able to do with a year and a half of work experience. And I feel so far ahead. Like, I am not worried when it comes to the clinical rotation. I feel like it will only build on the knowledge that I already have. But also trying to, stay humble and be like, there are still things that I have to learn. There will be new perspectives on a lot of things. So like I said, the notes that I learned to take in college were very different than the notes that I had to take when I was actually practicing in the field. And it's not that one was wrong, it's not that one was better, it's just that they were different. And, going to different hospitals, different outpatient facilities, what have you, there's always going to be something to learn. So that's kind of just what I'm trying to keep with it. Like, I do have a lot of great experience, but, I can still climb that mountain. There's still something to build on. So
That it sounds like you're going to be set up for success, having that humble perspective on what you're going to learn and just knowing the advantages that you do have. I love that. So with your career at NDTR and everything that you had to learn a lot of new things, working with that client base and a very specific population, what continual education were you exposed to, or what did you participate in as an NDTR?
Okay, so continuing education is something I actually really love. I love learning. So I love the fact that we have continual education that's required. So with Nutritious Lifestyles, where I worked, they tried to have webinars once a month with different things that we could learn, and it covered, you know, renal, different food textures, you know, tube feedings, malnutrition. It covered so many topics. It was fantastic, and each of those counted as one CEU. I was also a part of the North Carolina Academy of Dietetics, where they had a couple meetings where even if you weren't necessarily a member, you could pay like a super low fee to go to a class. I did one of those on a nutrition-focused physical exam. So that's like big up and coming for all of the interns, all of the new RDs of things that we are supposed to be doing. So that was really enlightening.
Can you just really quick explain, because that is like something new and kind of coming up. Can you explain what that is so people who don't know?
Yeah, so nutrition-focused physical exams, a lot of DTRs or dietitians do go into this because they want to help people, but they don't want to touch people. Otherwise, they would have become a nurse. And that's like a running joke that I hear everywhere. But it is really important. You know, you can not only assess malnutrition through physical features, but also micronutrient deficiencies. So kind of just by like looking at temples, different like eye fat pads, muscles in the mouth, hands in particular, you know, you gotta feed yourself somehow. Also like in shoulders, the ribs, your scapula, your thighs and calves. It really can tell you as a professional in nutrition how somebody really is eating and how it's affecting their body. So it's really important that we do start doing it, just to also be on the same level as a lot of the other medical professionals. So doctors, nurses, occupational, speech and physical therapy, like we are not just there to give a meal plan and leave. We have valuable information to give.
Love it. That was a really good explanation of the NPE. I feel like that was, yeah, very thorough. So anything else to add about the continual education? I kind of cut you off with that.
Oh, that's fine. No, I definitely think it's super important to continue it. And then especially since now I'm in a master's program, that technically counts as continuing education. And I think it is how many credits you have is one CEU. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to look. But for Dietetics, I believe it's 50 credits in 5 years. And for dietitians, it's 75 in 5. So, I mean, like, it's really important. It keeps you up to date on all of the new research that's happening within our field so that we can have better evidence-based practice and give, you know, the best information we possibly can to not only our patients and residents, but also other clinicians.
Yes. I 100% agree with that. So this interview has been very positive on the NDTR credential, but I don't want it to be super biased. So what is the most annoying or frustrating or challenging thing you face with this credential?
Yeah, so 2 things with that. Either nobody knows what a diet tech is, so they call you a dietitian, which isn't right because you didn't go through the internship, you didn't take that exam. You did take A exam, but not the dietitian exam. Or they know what a DTR is and they don't want to talk to you because you're not a dietitian. So I experienced both of those honestly at the same time. I was working at a long-term care facility where when I introduced myself to them the first time, I said, I'm the dietetic technician, and I explained to them the difference between a diet tech and a dietitian, and they were like, okay, yeah, I got it. But we had an annual state surveyor come in, and the dietitian, she went into the kitchen where I was at the time, and I said, hey, you know, if you have any questions, I'm the diet tech. My office is, you know, right across from the kitchen. If you need anything, like, come let me know. So as she was reviewing a lot of the things in the kitchen and a lot of clinical notes, she went to the director of nursing and said, I need to speak to the dietitian. So here's where it comes in. The director of nursing brings her to the office where I'm sitting at and is like, here's the dietitian. And she goes, no, that's the dietetics technician. I need the dietitian. And the director of nursing looked at me like I had lied to her for the entire time that I had worked there, when in reality, I had told her the truth and she just didn't know. So it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. Oh, that is frustrating. Oh my gosh. People
Yeah.
just don't listen or understand the difference between the two. And you did a good job of explaining the difference.
Yeah. And I don't know, it can be frustrating, annoying, and challenging all at the same time, because you don't want to have to continue to repeat yourself like, no, I'm not the dietitian, I'm the dietetic technician. But then, I don't know, sometimes they kind of look at you like you're less than because you're not a dietitian, even though they don't know the difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that insight. I haven't heard of that frustration with the credential yet. So that's really cool that not cool that you had the experience, but thank you for sharing that perspective. So I want to shift again in the interview, and let's talk about how you applied to your dietetic internship while you were working full-time as a DTR.
Yeah. So on Instagram, since I didn't get an internship the first time, I decided I was going to follow all of the dietetic internship application pages to see, hey, this is when things are doing, or, sign up for, X, Y, or Z so you can have a better internship application. So I made a point to kind of just like look into that, see if they had any free advice, because at that point I was working, I was saving up my money for the internship because I knew I would probably be living for like 2 years without being able to have a job. So I wasn't out here trying to pay for one of those assistants, but I did make sure that I had my coworkers and my professors look over my application, the little bios that you had to write to answer the questions. But yeah, I made sure that I tried to go to as many open houses as I possibly could, try to have extra questions to the director. If I wasn't able to physically be there, I Skyped in. A lot of them have either virtual or in open houses. So yeah, I did that. And if they didn't have an open house, I made a point to email and call the director as many times as I needed to get a hold of them so that I could have my own little open house. And I came prepared with questions, and I made sure to read over the handbooks and how their internship was laid out, just so I could ask like the most questions possible. Mm-hmm. I remember being an undergrad and being told, they're looking to see if you follow instructions and if you are reading all of them. Anything. So I didn't want to ask a question that I knew I could just find online. And that really helped me out. But then also having the DTR credential, I feel really put me at the top of the list. Maybe not above people who are coming out of undergrad with, however many hours of volunteer experience or like the grades. But I was definitely like up there, and I felt like I could be just as competitive, and I felt like I had the choice of, this is the internship I want, and it's likely that I'm going to get it.
Wow. So you followed people on Instagram who were doing what you wanted to do to get information. You reached out to the dietetic intern directors, you went to open houses, and then you worked in the field as an NDTR. That's what I took from that. Those were your.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you aren't a DTR, I think honestly, just putting in the work, putting in the effort, it really, really shows.
Yeah, it sounds like you were super determined. How did you find, so was the program you're in now one of your top picks? How did you find it? What attracted you to it?
Yeah, okay. So when I was looking for internships, I knew I wanted to have a combined program, DI, MS. just because it's going to be required in 2024. I'm going to just hop on the bandwagon now. I know I would be grandfathered in, but why not be just as competitive, anything like that. And I wanted to get my master's anyway, so I wanted to just knock it out at the same time.
Yeah.
Counseling was really important to me. I know you had mentioned that that's my strong suit. So I wanted to get more experience to make it better. So I looked for programs that had a really strong counseling element, and if they didn't, that they had a track or other electives that you could take for counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So I only applied to 3 because experience has told me the more that you apply to, does not, you'll get into any of them, and you end up spending a lot more money. So I applied to 3. I applied to Bradley University, which I'm at right now. I applied to Appalachian State University and Meredith College. So the last 2 were in North Carolina, and that was kind of important to me. I really wanted to stay there because I fell in love with the state since I moved there for work. And Appalachian State was actually my number 1, and Bradley, where I'm at right now, was my number 2. And I spoke with one of the dietitians that I worked with, and I asked her, why did I not get accepted by my number 1? And she had mentioned that in the process, Bradley might have had me ranked higher on their list than App State did. And so Bradley probably was able to grab me first before Appalachian State was, which was kind of sad because it was like, no, I really wanted it because it was, 3 hours away from my new home as opposed to like 11. So
yeah, that's a big difference. But I'm sure that just like how you didn't get into the internship right away out of college, I think it'll benefit you in the future, even if you don't see it now. So.
Yeah, like I definitely think at least out of this, I'm going to make a lot of great friends, and I'm going to get a lot of connections too on like the director of my program, as well as one of the professors that I have. They know a lot of the people in the hospitals around here. So, I mean, if I stay here just to make money before I hopefully move back to North Carolina, maybe I'll be able to get like a really good job.
Yeah, and now you have connections in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, and Illinois. So that is just, that networking ability is just so beneficial to moving around so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So with that, with your, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and now Illinois, what has been your experience with diversity in this field?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, a really prevalent question with everything going on right now. But there is a very big lack of diversity within, the dietetics, institution, if I may. Most of the people that work in dietetics are white female dietitians. You have a couple lack of diversities there. So first of all, mostly women. It's amazing to me when I see a man in any of my classes or a man dietitian in the hospital. Like I think they are just as important, and there are a lot of men who are concerned about their health, and maybe they're more comfortable talking to a man. Secondly, being prevalently white, there's a huge lack of people of color, which could also be very deterring. There might be, someone of color in the hospital, and they really want to talk to somebody that looks like them. And that could be really hard for them, only having, a white dietitian that's able to talk to them. Like they might not understand, food preferences or, other things like that. And then also the fact that most of the people in dietetics are dietitians. So that is really kind of puts dietetic technicians at a minority. So it's definitely like those 3 are big ones. But then also in a patient population, having worked in long-term care, most of the residents that I took care of were white. There were some Black people that I saw, and there were very little Asian or Hispanic, Latinx people there, which I think really creates like a separation with people. And then also kind of thinking, long term for somebody, somebody of color, they might look and be like, oh, I can't afford long-term care, or I won't meet people there that look like me that will know my needs. So I think it's prevalent in a lot of situations where we need more.
I 100% agree with that, what you said. And so I want to take it one step further. So I love that you're aware and you're talking about this. I think that's so prevalent. So for you, when you're working with a clientele basis, or for any dietitian or diet technician, what advice would you have if you're working with a population that doesn't look like you? Like if I'm working with a population of all Caucasian or all Hispanic, I don't understand them. What advice would you give for that dietitian or diet technician?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think honestly, like the biggest thing that you can do is kind of ask them, what can I do for you? What are some things that I can do to help advocate for your voice? Help me work with you. And I know, at least in long-term care, we had a very limited menu, which I already didn't like because not everybody wants to eat fried chicken, collard greens, and mashed potatoes every day. I don't want to do that. I love them all. I don't want to do that either. So it's kind of just like, how can we work through this together and not have it be me as an expert and you as, somebody that doesn't know anything. It's more of like, how are we going to, link hand in hand, arm in arm, and figure out all these things together. And it's more of a team approach.
I think you hit it right on the nail with that team approach, because people eat so differently, and like there's so much diversity in just menus and eating. So if you can really work with that client, thank you for that team approach for nutrition interventions. So you, Kelly, have given us so many amazing resources, like following dietetic internships and visual veggies. Is there anything that you just want to highlight, any resources you want to highlight towards the end of this interview?
Ooh, resources. I don't know specifically if I have any resources, but I definitely think like the biggest advice I have is if you're on the fence of getting, your DTR credential, not only because, you want to eventually become a dietitian, but, it just shows a lot of jobs that like you're willing to put in the work. It's great experience. If you do want to go into an internship, you are going to have so much knowledge to share with the other interns that you have. And then also, it's just, like I said before, like it looks great on resumes. And I really think it will help like boost confidence and like, I have this credential. I know what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, I definitely think it's really helpful for that. But also, like, I don't know if we really talked about it, but there were no jobs in Pennsylvania, so I had to move to North Carolina. I didn't know anybody, and it was really scary, but it was worth it. It was really worth it for me. So take that leap and really just do it and put your whole heart into it.
I love that advice. Thank you for saying that. Anything else you want to share, or before we close out the interview? I know you just gave a really good, compelling speech to do to be bold, but
no, not that I can think of. But definitely just like enjoy enjoy the journey, kind of that you're on, and it's probably not going to be a straight one, and you might have some things that like take you back, but you might have something that really like pushes you forward or gives you perspective on things. So.
Yeah, enjoy the journey. How can people get in contact with you if they want to reach out to you for specific questions?
Yeah, so you can email me, you can find me on Twitter, on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I'm private, so if you message me there, I may or may not get it. But yeah, those are the biggest ones. And then on Pinterest, I have a very fun food board. I'm not out here promoting only veggies. One of my favorite quotes from our professor, Dr. Porto, is, "A balanced diet is a cookie in both hands."
It's fun.
So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.
Yes, it was great having you. Thank you everyone for watching this interview. Again, if you have any questions, Kelly's information will be linked down below in the description box. And make sure to subscribe and follow along as we interview more NDTRs. Thanks so much for watching.